Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
I am well. I am well. I've only watched films with stupidly long titles this week. That's my theme for the week.
So
Do you want to kick us off, though?
Doctor Strangelove and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I will start with The Holdovers.
Okay.
I'm
I'm just waiting for your Roadhouse review, but you can keep me waiting. Keep me waiting.
I'll do that next if you like.
Okay. Put me out of my misery.
Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne, starring Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa and Divine Joe Randolph. So this is... Sadly, I watched this a little too late because it's a very Christmas movie.
Okay. Well, sometimes it's fine.
So it's a little late, but it's fine. So basically, Giamatti plays this teacher at this school called Mr. Hannum, and the Christmas break is coming up, and he has been basically told that he's got to do the holdovers this Christmas, which is anybody that can't go home to their parents has to stay on school grounds and celebrate Christmas there. So he's got 5 students that are there, and he is a classics teacher who pretty much hates all of his students. He's sort of flunking them all because no one really likes him, and pretty much all of the students are little shits.
Right.
And he basically, like, he has this argument with this Angus, the main kid.
Yeah.
Angus he's got the best grade in his class of his students, but it's still quite a low one.
Right.
And he's trying to argue that it's Christmas and they should be not have to do the test again. And he says, okay, well, we'll do this test again, but you'll have to do this, this, and this. And they're all like, no, we don't want to do that. And they're like, yes. So he argues with him, and then he says, okay, well then you won't get this, but you will all have to do this over the holidays. And they're like, oh, you fucking bastard! You just screwed us all.
Yeah.
So off all the kids go off, and see, initially he thinks he's going. So Angus thinks he's going away with his mother and his stepfather, but he gets a phone call from his mother and says, look, this is a new husband. They haven't been on honeymoon. They haven't spent enough time together yet, so they're going on their own, and they're going to leave where you've got to stay there.
Mm.
So of course he's absolutely devastated by this, and with the prospect of being with Mr. Hannum for the whole Christmas holiday is just horrifying to him.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hannum is, he's not only is he a pompous know-it-all, he's got this thing that means I can't remember what it is exactly, but his body doesn't process something, so he smells like fish.
Oh, okay.
So he's got this turned eye so that you never know which eye to look at when you're talking to him.
Right.
Which is a sort of a joke throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of this... They do this amazing job of making these people dickheads, but what they're saying is true.
Yeah, okay.
He's saying about the kids, and he's saying how awful they are, and that they're basically getting this amazing education, but they're all squandering it. And he's he's a stickler for the rules, and he's adamant that they'll do the work properly.
Yeah.
And he's in trouble with the headmaster because he flunked a senator's son. Right. And the headmaster hates him. It just seems that almost everybody hates him. And the headmaster was a former student of his as well, so he's been here forever.
Right.
And the Christmas sort of period they have is like, and initially they're like, oh well, the heating has been turned off in most of the school, so you can't even stay in your rooms. You have to stay in the infirmary, basically, on these beds. So they've all got to stay in the infirmary because it's one of the only places that's going to be heated over the
Yeah.
holidays. And then there's Mrs. Lamb, who is the cook.
Right.
And she lives on the premises, and she is a black woman whose son went to the school because she worked there. But it's 1970, and he went to Vietnam, and he died in Vietnam.
Right.
So she's a grieving mother who, again, she's stuck with these horrible students and this teacher who's a bit of a dick. But obviously, through the course of the movie, they start bonding, and they change how they look at things, through their interactions and talking to each other about certain stuff, and the history of these two, because the main two is Angus and Mr. Hannum, and just the sort of when you hear about what when it all comes out and stuff, and there's these brilliant little bits where that they end up lying for each other, and they're like, oh, I thought you said I can't remember what the name of the bloody school is now, but it's like whatever the name of the school is, something like Dartmoor men don't lie, and he's like, I didn't lie, it was just a sort of a thing.
Oh, he did a Spock. He exaggerated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. But it's so good. Giamatti is amazing, and I've not seen this Dominic Sessa before in anything. He is so good. He's such a little know-it-all little shit at first, and he's so upset that his mum is got. And I'll spoil one thing. So one of the students that's there, he's got this long hair, and he's not going to skiing with his parents because his dad said he's got to get his hair cut before he goes skiing.
Right.
And he says, oh, he's a principled thing. He says, no, it's just one of those things. I don't really care. It's just, we're just doing it.
Mm.
When they're in the middle of a meal, I think it is, and a helicopter turns up, and his dad has changed his mind.
Right.
And not only has he changed his mind, he's taking all of the other kids with him as well.
Right.
But they can't get hold of Angus's mum.
Right.
So he has to stay there. So all the other students piss off to ski in St.
And
Bart's,
he's just there on his own.
And he's the only one left.
Damn.
With the cook and Mr. Hannum. And there's some beautifully heartbreaking scenes with Mary, and grieving for her son, and the difference between her son and the her son, and how there's a bit where they're talking about the kids who go here, and how almost all of them are moneyed kids, and they're not gonna you wouldn't get sent to Vietnam if you had a college deferral.
Yeah.
So of course all of those kids, they're all going, they'll never go to Nam because whatever happens, they're going to get a deferral.
Yeah.
Because her son, they couldn't get the money, even with like a grant, they couldn't get enough money. So and he was but he was really happy because he could go to Nam, he would come back, and he could go to college on the GI Bill.
Right.
So of course that obviously doesn't happen because he dies, and but it's lovely, and the relationship is so good, and the build up of the things as they're going along, and it's so good. It's honestly it's one that it'll be a Christmas movie that I think I'll probably watch this Christmas as well.
I was just about to say, do you recommend watching it now, or would you suggest waiting until Christmas?
I think I would recommend watching it any time. But if you really want a good Christmas movie, I think this is it. I
might save it. I might save it for Christmas and make that my first watch.
It might be worth it.
Yeah.
It's so funny and so moving, and just I think it's one of Giamatti's best performances, and that's saying something for Giamatti, because he's always delightful, even in the shittest of movies.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he's always great. And there's this, like I said, this new kid. I thought he was really, really good. And I was looking at some of the things, some of the like the little um, information on it. And one of the things, he flubbed a scene because he was supposed to be phoning his mum, and he didn't know how the rotary phone worked.
Oh, that's really cute.
I think that's great.
That's
I
really
love
cute.
that. That's you don't really think about that. You just think,
No, you just kind of assume people know how to do things like that. But why on earth would a kid know how to do that?
no, exactly.
Like, there's no reason for that to be.
I don't imagine any of my little cousins and nieces and things, or I don't imagine any of them, nieces and nephews. I don't imagine any of them would know how a rotary phone works.
Do you know? I don't even have a house phone. But I have seen you can get digital rotary phones.
Yes.
And I feel like if I was gonna have to have one for any reason, I would get one of those. Because I like the little spinny thing.
Yeah,
know?
I do.
I miss the spinny thing. I'm like, that was half the fun with home phones.
We do have a house phone, which doesn't really get used very much. It's just one of those things that you get with the.
Oh yeah, I get it. I got it. I just never plugged it.
package.
I never plugged it in because I'm like, well, the only fuckers that are going to call me is sales calls from Virgin. No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to plug it in.
Never answer it.
No.
But I wanted one of the old candlestick phones.
Oh yeah.
My wife wouldn't let me. It's like I am not using that. It's like
we
well,
did
so cool.
We did an episode of You Know It on the weekend. Me and Nick recorded it. I haven't posted it yet, but I said during that I think the house phones peaked with the Garfield phone. I think that was the best. That's why that's the best a phone is ever going to be. Like novelty phone, Garfield's the peak of that.
I think there's always two that I think of with the novelty ones, and that's the American football one.
Oh yeah, there's the burger as well.
Sorry,
the burger.
That's the other one.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Burger, yeah. The burger is just wow. People were so chuffed with that, weren't they?
Oh, little Garfield's eyes opening. It was great.
Yep.
Yeah, I do know. I'd not considered the fact that kids don't know how to use rotary phones until now.
No.
But there's never going to be a situation where they need to know that. Ever.
Not really.
Not in this country. Not in the West.
Not unless they're interested in history or something. But
yeah, but where there are situations where you're like, well, oh god, my phone's broken and I need to do maths. Like, okay, well that's a problem then, isn't it? You need to know how to do maths without a calculator or a phone just in case that ever happens. There is never going to be a situation in this country where they somehow need to use a rotary phone. But well, I will definitely put this on my Christmas film list because I'm always looking for good new Christmas movies. It's
really great. It's got some beautifully moving moments. It's got just some out and out funny moments, and it's just beautifully put together. There are some lovely little sort of shots of very late 60s, early 70s cars, and they do a very good job of I think it's shot digitally, but they sort of make it look like it's a 70s shot movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a really good job of it, and it looks great. It's just wonderful performances, and I can't recommend it enough. It's just so good, really genuinely funny and heartwarming.
Well, that's good.
Just moving in general, yeah.
You started on a positive. I like it.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids, I watched Ghostbusters Frozen Empire about 3 weeks ago, and I've forgotten most of it, so I'm gonna flub my way through this review. So this is obviously the follow-up to Ghostbusters Afterlife, the film that, after the failed reboot, successfully soft rebooted the franchise, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah, so this is a direct sequel to that. It takes place like 3 years later. Still stars the same cast. So you got Paul Rudd, Kerry Coon, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace. You've got Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts, Bill Murray. All of the cast are there that are alive. The original cast. Takes place 3 years later. We're back in New York, which is, fantastic. I as much as I enjoyed Afterlife being somewhere totally different, it always feels like the Ghostbusters belong in New York.
Yeah.
So
I mean, as we've said before, when we did Ghostbusters, New York is one of the characters, basically.
It absolutely is, especially in the second one. It's fucking driving the Statue of Liberty.
Exactly, yeah. It's a very New York-centric movie.
Yeah.
Movies.
Yeah. It's... So I loved that. It was really nice that they're back in New York. It was really nice that you get to see the original Ghostbusters and what they're doing. Like, you get to see Ray's Occult books, and you get to see what Winston's doing with his millions. I'm not very keen on that stuff, but I'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
We get to see them living their life, and I thought that was it.
Honestly,
they feel less shoehorned in.
I'd just like to see a show of Ray's Occult books.
Yeah, I think that would be such a good TV show. Ray's Occult books would be amazing. So in fact, they do that here, where it's like he does a podcast from that kid podcast from the first one, who is barely in this, by the way. He's just like suddenly appears, and you're like, oh yeah, you were in the first one.
You were another character.
Yeah, you're one of the characters. I forgot about you. So that's really nice. It's nice seeing them. They feel less shoehorned in this one, whereas in the last one they just kind of turn up at the end with all of their gear, even though apparently they said earlier that Egon got rid of all of their gear, and suddenly they've just got it magic. So in this, it feels like they're a part of the team already. They're kind of there. They're separated. They're not working as active Ghostbusters, but they're involved, right?
Yeah.
Especially Winston, who is now basically financing everything. And one of the nicest touches I thought of Afterlife was that line that Winston has when he's like, "Look, Ray's Occult has never turned a profit. Like I keep the lights on." I thought that was really sweet. I really liked that idea.
Yeah, I thought that was cool as well.
So
I just like the idea of Winston being very shrewd with his money.
Oh, totally.
And being the only one that actually put money aside and made money, whereas everybody else is just like, a fuck up, basically.
Well, and Winston was always all about the money.
Yeah.
He's like, if there's a steady paycheck, I'll believe whatever you want.
Paycheck,
and it's like, he would be the sensible one, because that Egon would just blow all of his money on new tech and
weird tech,
crazy shit, and Ray would just go crazy into occult shit, and
Ray would just be buying weird artifacts and old books,
and I imagine that. Oh, God, I don't even know. I guess Bill Murray would just drink himself to death. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, what would Venkman be doing?
I don't know.
I guess it depends on whether they got married or not, right? Because if he got married, then I guess Dana might be a bit more sensible with money.
Yeah,
but
she'd probably keep him grounded, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether he'd end up. Maybe he'd end up on one of these, because Dana says that he's like a game show host at some point.
Yeah.
And I think he'd end up on one of those like late night,
really shit,
weird talk show things. You know what I mean?
Public access talk show. Yeah. God, I really wish we had like public access. I guess we kind of have now with like YouTube and stuff, but
it's kind of what YouTube is, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. But I think Wayne's World always made me feel like, I'm really missing out on all these really naff, weird.
Yeah.
They're probably nowhere near as good as Wayne's World made them out to be, but So anyway, I liked all that. It was nice, and I liked that when we open, we catch up with the younger cast, obviously led by Kerry Coon and Paul Rudd. They're now living in the firehouse, which again, I was instantly like, I like this. This is Ghostbusters. You're scraping by, right? And they're actually not just working out of the firehouse, they're living there. And I was like, oh, that's cool, right? That's something the Ghostbusters would have done. They're so strapped for cash, they have to live there. Obviously, Winston's keeping the lights on. Great. We now have Walter Peck, played by William Atherton. He is now the mayor. He's the mayor of New York. Which in itself, I was like, there's a really cool story here. Like, how did the man who effectively screwed over the city get there? Like, you could talk about his political fuckery to kind of, power play his way in. And there's a nice moment of that at the end, actually, like briefly. But he obviously hates the Ghostbusters, as you would expect. And in the opening, they take down this ghost, but there's a lot of collateral damage. They're pulled in, and Walter Peck's like, "Hey, look, you've literally got a child, McKenna Grace, jumping out of the side of a moving vehicle and shooting a laser. Like, this is obviously dangerous." And they're kind of arguing back and forth and whatnot. And
the thing
also,
I love about that is that you think that's actually it looked so cool in the last movie, but you do think, why did they make it coming out of the side?
Yeah, it makes no sense. There's because the toy did it. That's why. That's the only reason why.
I guess so.
Like,
yeah.
It's the toy. That's it.
But you could make the toy come out of the roof. That would make more sense.
No. But the Ghostbusters car toy had the side thing.
Oh, it did.
So they just made it was for the toy. They were like, "Oh, we're referencing the toy by putting the gunner seat on the side," even though it is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it's a terrible idea. And Walter Peck rightly points that out. One of the biggest issues of this movie is Walter Peck, but I'll get to that in a bit. So, yeah, so far so good. The problems come shortly after that. Really, there are a lot of problems with this movie, in my opinion. First of all, we see Winston, and I was all for it. I was all for Winston being the millionaire, billionaire, whatever. Mm-hmm. He's keeping the lights on at Ray's. He's keeping the Ghostbusters going. He's not giving them enough money to like just live their lives happily. They're working and they're living in the firehouse, but he's keeping the firehouse going. He's financing them.
Yeah.
But we soon see that actually Winston's got this whole Ghostbusting corporation, and he's like Tony Stark now, and there's this whole fucking SeaWorld that's been converted into a ghost-busting facility where they test out new weapons and they keep ghosts locked up, and they're experimenting and doing like mad Stark Tech stuff. And I was instantly like, no, this is not Ghostbusters now. You've missed. Ghostbusters are schlubby exterminators. Exterminating ghosts instead of cockroaches.
Didn't Winston say at the end of the last one though that he was going to make it like go global sort of thing?
I guess he probably did, and fine if he did. I just don't think I like that direction.
No.
Or even going global's one thing, but having this like really slick, we've got like this whole team of scientists working on the ghosts and
yeah,
it's like you're like the heart of Ghostbusters, which now they felt like briefly we got closer to because we're back in New York, and it's like, okay, like you said, that the character of New York's back, but now we're here with like this stuff, and I'm like, no, they're meant to be just exterminators, like they're meant to be poor. When they were living in the firehouse, I was like, that's great. That's totally in line with Ghostbusters and totally what you'd expect. But anyway, so he's got this now. Meanwhile, McKenna Grace's character, Phoebe. So there's this ghost, right? This thing, this orb that's brought in by Nadim's character. And he says, oh, is my late grandmother's thing. And she used to trap spirits or whatever, or supposedly she was involved in that stuff, like supernatural stuff. He takes it into Ray's occult. Ray inspects it, gives it to Winston ultimately, and it's got the frozen ghost thing, right? The frozen empire monster.
Yeah.
You're right, fair enough. So that's going on. The McKenna Grace's character finds and falls in love with a female ghost who for some reason looks like a normal person rather than like a hideous ghost like everything else looks like. Although again, you could say they did that with Egon anyway, so I guess we're fine.
Yeah.
Guess what?
What?
She has, I'll tell you, let's see if you can figure this plot out. I'm not going to spoil it.
I've heard what she does.
You. So there's a ghost that's going around freezing everything.
Right.
And this ghost girl, she's like, oh, my whole family died in a fire.
Yep.
And I've got one match left in my matchbook, and I don't know what I'm doing with it.
Right.
I'm going to let you wonder as to how that match comes into play against the freezing ghost monster at the end of the movie.
Okay.
somewhat telegraphed. This movie.
That's a very specific fucking MacGuffin.
Oh god, it was so obvious. I turned to Ben as soon as she pulled out the match. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, okay. I know where this is going. I literally turned to him and went, I wonder if this is going to come in handy later against the freezing ghost. This movie is boring as fuck. And I'm almost heartbroken at saying that, because this movie is a movie that's kind of on the surface giving you everything you want. Really, yeah. It gives you all the original cast that are alive. Obviously, you can't help that, we're missing one. Yeah. But the ones that are alive, you get to see them doing their day jobs. They're involved with the Ghostbusters. You've got a really great cast of characters that you set up in Afterlife, and here they are, Ghostbusters in New York, where I want them to be. The movie feels like it doesn't have a second act. It feels like the first act goes on for about an hour and a half, and then there's a third act shoved in right at the end. It feels like nothing happens. It goes on and on and on with next to nothing happening. I've
heard that there are way too many characters.
Way too many, yes, absolutely.
Because they introduce...
they add more.
Patton Oswalt and Kamal Nanjiani and a number of other people. Fucking James Acaster's in it. It's like, how the hell did James Acaster get in that?
And again, it's like, you had such a big cast already.
Yes.
Why have you done this?
Especially with the new ones. I mean, that's like, a good 4 or 5 people anyway.
Well, yeah,
Why
exactly.
would you need to add to that?
There was never any need. I mean, you had ancillary characters in Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, obviously. But not people you're actively trying to follow constantly and keep on top of. And even then, it was only like 2, wasn't it? Really, it was like 2 extra characters or 3 extra characters at most.
Yeah.
Like here, you've got like the original cast plus the whole new cast from Afterlife, all with their own side stories that they're trying to do. You got Ray doing a podcast with podcast. You've got Winston doing his tech thing. You've got this new love interest, which is a ghost for Grace McKenna. I assume it's a love interest. It's hinted that way. They never really kind of go there, but like it's heavily hinted. That's probably what it is. You've got Kerry Coon and Paul Rudd, who are great. Again, the cast is fantastic. The plot though is so lacking and it's so boring. I tell you, at one point in this movie, I felt like I was going to fall asleep, and I was like, I am so fucking bored. And I turned to my left, and Ben and Nick were both asleep. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not just me. Like, I thought it was just me. I didn't fall asleep. I watched the whole thing, but God, it felt like it went on longer than fucking June 2,
I was going to say, it's only an hour and 50.
No, it's got no excuse to feel as long as it felt, but it really did feel long.
Wow, that's bad.
The one of the worst things as well is that ultimately, this movie, Walter Peck, 100% fucking right. He's right in everything he fucking says in the movie. Might as well be the hero of the film. Honestly, they've basically made him right the whole way through. They're like, yeah, actually, you shouldn't have a fucking small teenage girl leaning out the side of a car shooting a laser. That's a really stupid idea. I did kind of wonder at the end of Afterlife how they were going to handle that stuff. It's like, now you've got kids. How's that going to work when you're actually officially Ghostbusters? That, and he's right. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. And then later on, in Ghostbusters, it's Walter Peck's fucking around with the trap that causes the whole thing.
Yeah, he turns off the containment.
Well, in this movie, it's the Ghostbusters that cause all of it. It's their fault. The whole thing is their fault. So you're like, well, he's right. You are bloody terrible. You are a threat. You have.
So what you're saying is that somebody wanted to redeem Walter Peck.
Well, I don't think they intended to, because they still make out like Walter Peck's an asshole, and he is. But in this movie, it's like he's right though. He's fucking right. Like, you're massively irresponsible, and you've caused all of this, and God knows how many people have died because of you. Albeit, when it's a character we want to live, even though they clearly should die like everyone else has clearly died, they're fine. They just shrug it off. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's there are things to like in this movie. I need to be clear about that. Like I said, I like catching up with the Ghostbusters, seeing what they're doing. I really love the like living in the firehouse stuff. There's a lot of nice bits, but the plot is awful. And it's such a shame and a come down after Afterlife, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
You know? And in many ways, this one started better than Afterlife, because I felt like Afterlife kind of descends into a remake of Ghostbusters in the last sort of 10 minutes or so.
Yeah,
It kind of
it
does that. And that's, you know, it was like fine because the movie was so good up to that point. But with this movie, it was like, okay, now we can get on with being proper Ghostbusters. You're in New York. Let's go. And yeah, really, really disappointing. And again, frustrating because there are moments, you know? There's moments of greatness in there. There's bits that you're like, oh, that's really good. But it just doesn't quite hit the mark for me. Yeah, I couldn't believe how dull it was. And in fact, like weeks later, that's my only real solid memory of it is how dull it is.
Bored, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, there's brief moments like we get to see Ray and Phoebe. They go on like a side adventure. Or is it Finn? I can't remember who bloody hell it is. It might be Finn Wolfhard who goes. I can't remember. But anyway, you get that. They go to the library. You get the library ghost again and stuff like that. Slimer's back. You saw him in the trailer.
Yep.
Barely.
How's Slimer? Is he all right?
He's barely in it, but Slimer was barely in Ghostbusters anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
You know. No, he looks great. He looks exactly like Slimer, which is nice. You know, they haven't CG'd him up or anything. He looks like Slimer. He acts like Slimer. So, you know, there are bits to like. It's such a come down from Afterlife, which I felt like finally got that series back on track. And, you know, I thought we were going to get somewhere. And it kind of feels like, no. I would say, like, I would watch Afterlife again. No worries. I would not watch this again. Like, I wouldn't watch Frozen Empire again. I've seen it once, and I'm good with that. I'll never, you know, I'd watch Ghostbusters 2 over Frozen Empire. I'd watch Afterlife over Frozen Empire. Do you know what I was saying the other day? I was like, it might be really harsh to say. I think I'd probably watch the female Ghostbusters movie over this because, like,
good lord.
Well, but the thing is, that movie's so bad, you can kind of fucking laugh at how incompetent it is. Like, this movie's just dull, you know? Like bad is better than dull, isn't it?
Well,
I think
that is true.
You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh there. I don't know. To be fair, I haven't watched the female Ghostbusters movie since like the first time I watched it. So it was a long time after it came out before I watched it. But yeah, so a disappointment for sure. But there are some bits. You know, I feel like, you know, people have to watch it anyway. If you like Ghostbusters, you're probably
I mean, I'm still gonna give it a go, but I haven't heard very good things about it at all.
No,
and you know, after your review, it has made me think. Well, maybe I'm not going to be going out of my way.
I wouldn't go out of your way. I would suggest to anyone to just wait for it to come to streaming.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of moving house and I just wanted a break, and you know, that movie was short enough because I wanted to do Dune 2, but I didn't have time, so it was like, well, you know, it's a shorter movie. Didn't fucking feel like it, but it was. So you know. But anyway. Yes, that's Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So, what else have you watched?
So, I have seen the Roadhouse remake.
Yes, you have.
So,
which I said to you I was going to watch, and then I just didn't.
And you lied.
What an asshole.
So, I don't know. I we discussed the original Roadhouse. We both like.
We should review the original Roadhouse sometime.
Yeah,
that could be fun.
That is a good idea. It's a movie I love. It's dumb.
It's very dumb,
and but it knows what it is.
It is, however, 100% of its time. And I pose to you, you cannot make a modern day version of Roadhouse. It's not possible. Because you can do fucking DNA and fingerprints shit now.
Yeah, well, there is that.
It just doesn't work at all. The end of that movie made barely any sense back then. Like, now is like, Jesus.
It is small town, though. And the fact that, you know, the police can cover it up as well if they're all in on it.
That's true, yeah.
If everyone's in on it, then...
Yes. Well, that's the conceit of the original. It always felt kind of ridiculous in that one.
Yes, it is. It is very silly, but... You know, that movie is totally carried by
performances.
Yeah, mostly by Swayze and Sam Elliott, who are just
both superb. Yeah. One of my favorite Sam Elliott performances, actually.
He's great.
I mean, he's not particularly stretching himself. He's a very good actor, and he's not really putting he's not really giving it his all. But he's just a really fun character.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's one of my mum's favourite movies because she absolutely adores Patrick Swayze, but she even more loves Sam Elliott.
Okay, that's
she
good.
absolutely loves Sam Elliott, so that movie is perfect for her.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So this one's done by Doug Lyman, who had previously done Edge of Tomorrow, and what was the other big one he did? Oh dear, he did some Suits. Oh, he did Jason Bourne. Oh dear.
Oh, the fourth one or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I liked Live, Die, Repeat. It was good.
Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think he did as well. So.
Okay.
Born Supremacy. Okay, so he did do Born Identity, Born.
Okay,
so, yeah,
those early movies were good, and I did like Live, Die, Repeat was really good.
So, basically, this version you've got Dalton is Jake Gyllenhaal, and he is a UFC fighter who you learn basically over the course of it. I'm not bloody spoiling anything. You learn over the course that he basically killed someone in a fight, and now he's a sort of this. He lives in his car, sort of thing, and he goes to fights. And
oh wait, so he's not a fixer, a bouncer dude?
No, he's not remotely a bouncer. He literally is.
He's just a murderer.
He's Well, he goes to sort of like it seems to be backyard fights.
Yeah.
Where it's people take on all comers for money, and the first fight is there's these two blokes fighting in the thing, and I don't know much about this. Well, okay, I should say. So one of the guys, I was looking at him and I'm thinking, that dude with all the tattoos, I'm sure I recognise that fucking dude. I couldn't play, and then I'm like, oh my god, I know exactly who that is. That's Post Malone.
Oh yeah.
So Post Malone is one of the fighters in the beginning, right? And it's like, oh my god, why on earth is Post Malone? Like I said, I don't know anything about his music, or really. I've only heard a few things. I've heard a weird collaboration he did with Ozzy, which was strange.
That was in a trailer for something recently, and I can't think what it is.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus. He's fighting, and then
is it not the one in the Crow trailer?
Oh, it might be. Is that? You're right. I think you're right.
I think that's where I've heard it. I could be wrong though. That could be someone else doing a collaboration with Ozzy. It's definitely Ozzy in the trailer.
Well, Ozzy seems to be doing a few collaborations. It feels to me like that people are trying to get in with Ozzy before he carks it.
Well, yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Love Ozzy, but
me too. But yeah, he is definitely.
So he's basically this fight. So Post Malone wins this fight against this bigger guy, and then Dalton walks in. He sits down. He starts taking off his shoes. And then Post Malone's character says, "Oh, it's Dalton. I'm not fighting Dalton," and he just leaves. So he leaves. Right. Dalton gets the money without even fighting because people like his reputation because he's killed someone. People don't want to fight him. Blah blah blah. Right. So he's got that.
But don't book him.
Sorry.
Don't book him.
Yeah. Well, no, they don't book him because it's backyard stuff.
Sorry. It's just whoever shows up has a fight. And
okay.
Sorry, I'm with you.
In a fighting in a barn, basically, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And Frankie is there. She's been told to look some guy up, and she sees him, and she basically goes to him instead, and says, "Look, I've got a roadhouse that needs a bouncer, and I think you'd be good for it." And it's like he gets stabbed by one of the guys who he'd lost money. It's like, I lost $500 on you, and he stabs him. And Gyllenhaal's Dalton just does this sort of smile and be happy guy sort of thing. He's like, it's taken the be nice thing from the original up a notch, where he's just like really, really nice all the time, and he's got this really weird grin. You know that Gyllenhaal grin.
Yeah, I was going to say Gyllenhaal does that grin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the slightly unnerving. I'm not quite the full ticket.
Yes.
Grin,
Yeah.
So he's got this sort of that sort of grin. And first of all, he's obviously at the end of his tether. He has this encounter with a train in his car, and he decides to take the job. Initially, he says no. So he goes to this Florida Keys roadhouse, which is just called the Roadhouse, which is this joke that they keep sort of bringing up. It's
God.
yeah, it's called the Roadhouse. Why is it called the Roadhouse? Because it's funny. Is it?
It's not funny.
Okay. And it's like, oh, I need somewhere to stay. Oh, there's a boat. I've noticed a boat out the back. Oh, yeah. That's my my uncle's boat or something. He also named it Boat because my uncle was funny.
Christ.
It's like, oh, sure. Why the fuck not? So, of course, he's there. He goes, this is it's more like a fucking tiki bar than a roadhouse. It's really fucking weird. He bumps into local people at this bookshop, and the girl gives him a book and explaining about the tree that lives on the broken bridge in Miami. That's in Miami, Florida, sorry. Which I didn't know about. It's apparently a real tree that I think it's like a tree from Australia that just randomly took root in this broken bridge.
Oh, okay.
And it's survived hurricanes and all sorts. And there's like no soil on the bridge, but this tree lives there. Well, that was one of the only things I really liked about it. I really thought, oh, that's interesting. So it's the same sort of thing as before. The dickheads turn up. He puts them in a hospital. He drives them to the hospital.
Nice guy.
Where he bumps into this Ellie, who is this nurse, and she initially's like, "Oh, thanks for bringing people for me to work on." It's like, we're all understaffed, and it was like all this, like, okay, fine, but it's your fucking job anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of your
business. Weirdo. She's terrible, and I don't know whether it's because she's not acting in her own language or something, but she's fucking awful. Anyway, she's the love interest, and they've got no chemistry whatsoever. She's totally awful. So basically, the gang is the most unintimidating bunch of fucking people you've ever met.
Right.
I mean, some of them are pretty hench. They're pretty built, but they're just I couldn't imagine them being scary.
Isn't Conor McGregor one of them? I mean, Conor McGregor is
right. I'll get to that. He's not he's not
part of the gang. Okay. Yeah.
So basically, it's the bad guy. It's this spoiled rich kiddie whose dad used to run this like town, but now he's in jail, and they want to buy I nearly called it the Double Deuce. Then it's not fucking the Double Deuce, the Roadhouse, so they can knock it down and build a big fucking hotel complex. It's that usual sort of stuff. When the gang doesn't, gets beaten up by Gyllenhaal's character, it's all, obviously they need something else to work. So that's when they bring in Knox, which is the Conor McGregor character.
Right.
So he turns up, and he's just a psychopath that, when you're introduced to him, he's jumping out of a woman's window, and her husband shouting after him, and he just walking naked down the street.
Oh, okay.
Gets a phone call, pulls a phone out of the socks that he's wearing. He's just wearing socks and shoes.
I was about to ask where he got the phone from.
Yeah, it was in his socks. He then basically mugs some bloke for his clothes, and then walks away with the whole marketplace on fire, sort of thing. He's that psycho.
Yeah. Okay.
He is fucking awful. And I mean, I don't know if anybody expected anything other than that anyway.
Not really. I mean, I just expected him to turn up and be Conor McGregor.
Exactly. That's basically it. He's just the thug that is Conor McGregor.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, the thing is that he's so over the top and mental that you sort of don't find him scary. However, it's Conor McGregor, so that
he legit is scary. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that he could kill you with his little finger. So there's a very weird sort of disconnect where it's like, oh, this is terrible and not scary, but it is kind of scary because of who he is. It's very odd.
I imagine the cast were pretty fucking concerned.
I wouldn't fucking want to be around him, to be honest.
No.
But sure. Anyway, well, obviously, so you get the fights with him, and there's the corrupt sheriff is the. I'm spoiling things slightly, but I don't think it fucking matters. The corrupt sheriff is the the doctor lady's dad, and he's gonna leave. He's not scared of what. The thing is he's not scared. He's scared of what he might do. That's
yeah, of course. Yes,
that's why he decides he's going to leave at one point, and something happens and he comes back. This is just awful. it's there was a point like halfway through where I thought this isn't so bad. This is okay.
And then it got bad.
This is okay, and then it just descends into like, what is going on? What? Like they've turned up the sort of corrupt town, up to the nth degree, and it's so ridiculous and so silly, and you don't believe any of the people in it. Gyllenhaal seems to be the only one who wants this movie to work. Really,
yeah.
It feels like he is in another movie. It feels like he's trying to be in the original. I think it's like he thinks he's turned up to 1980s Roadhouse, and he's not. Everybody else is in some other fucking movie.
Yeah.
The fight scenes are okay.
Well, I mean, Gyllenhaal's reasonably capable. I mean, he did that boxing movie and stuff, and obviously Conor McGregor knows how to fight for real. So I imagine some of the fight scenes are reasonable.
Yeah. Well, there's a weird thing they've done with this, and they've got. I'm trying to remember exactly how it works. They've digitalized them, right?
Okay.
And the moment of impact things. So when in a normal fight, you'd either angle it so that they're not striking each other.
Oh, they've like digitally added the last couple of inches.
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of interesting.
And it's
like as a I'd never considered that, but that's actually quite an interesting idea.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I'm not quite sure it works.
The technology's, I don't think, quite there yet.
Well, no, because it's never going to look right because your bone structure doesn't work. Like, your fist can't just extend further than it has. Like, that doesn't... Do you know what I mean? Like your arm's going to be shaped the way your arm is. I imagine it looks weird.
It just has the effect of making it look like it's all computer generated.
Yeah,
types,
yeah.
So it just looks like you're watching a computer game sometimes. And there's a weird thing where
I guess it's because you're used to not seeing. You're so used to filmmaking techniques that don't let you see that now you're seeing it. You're like, oh my god, that's weird. It's wrong.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that I think it's because you can see the seams. You know what I mean? You can see when they're doing it.
Yeah.
So it just looks it's a little jarring. I think maybe with a couple of years it'll smooth it out so that it won't look so fake. But it is odd because it does make at times, even though I know that the set that they built the whole bar, but there's the big fight between McGregor and Gyllenhaal at the end. There are times where it just looks like they're on a green screen, and it looks very weird. It's terrible. But honestly, it could have been worse. I couldn't recommend it because it's just a bad movie. But it's an odd one because I think for the first half at least, they're sort of trying to do a few different things, and it's okay. And his version of Dalton is, a little bit different. He doesn't have the whole sort of, the Zen philosophy thing that, Swayze's Dalton has.
Swayze's character as well was probably mostly because of Patrick Swayze. Very charming and likable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wanted to root for Dalton.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and Dalton's not like he's not like not getting into fights because he's worried he will murder someone.
yeah,
He's avoiding fights because he's too smart. Like, he's smart. He knows when to step in, when not to step in, when to get involved, when not to get involved. There's that great scene when he first turns up to the bar and he's just like, everyone's fighting around him and he's just not even getting involved.
they try to do that.
But it's a different edge when it's because he's worried he's going to murder someone.
Yeah, well, you don't really find that out until later, but it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
They sort of do that. There was a moment where he's sort of just sat at the bar watching the fights go on around him, but it doesn't have the same feel. It doesn't have the same, because Swayze's that's his job. He's there. He's watching to see how they handle it.
Yes,
and he's watching all of the corruption in the bar.
Yeah, because one of the first things he does is sack the barman. He's like, "You're drinking the profits. You're like, you've drunk this much. That cost this much. You've cost the bar this much. Get out.
You're pocketing money.
Yeah.
You're dealing drugs. We don't fucking do that. You're doing this. There's none of that. There's none that makes it feel like it.
But then I guess in this movie that's not his profession. So it's kind of they can't do any of that.
No, I suppose. Yeah, I guess it.
But again, that was kind of a core element of that movie, is that he's been there and done that so many times. Like when he gets the rental car, because he knows they're going to smash the window.
They're going to smash his car up, yeah.
You know, it's great moments like that you can't really do when he's just a UFC fighter or MMA fighter.
And there's no I forgot what Sam Elliott's character's called now. There's no character for him. There's no equivalent.
Right.
So he doesn't like call in, a friend to help him, or anything. Which I think it probably could have benefited from. I think if Gyllenhaal would have had somebody to play off a little more, like Swayze does with Wade,
yeah.
with Wade's character in it, it would work more. I mean, I don't know what spoilers for the original, but when Wade gets fucking murdered,
the way really fucking matters.
Fuckers.
Yeah, like, totally.
He says, which one is it? It's like a heads or tails thing, isn't it? It's like either your girlfriend or your mate, and it's like that's a really fucking well done, stupid over the top 80s thing, but it works for the characters.
Absolutely,
gives them more motivation. You don't have any of that with this new one.
Do you know what? I'm gonna file this one right next to Red Dawn. Roadhouse the original and Red Dawn the original are both insanely stupid but very enjoyable movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the remakes and I have no interest in watching either. I've never watched the Red Dawn remake, and I will probably never watch this remake either.
I actually don't mind it's not that bad.
Is it actually okay?
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's rubbish, but it's
but
right.
the original wasn't amazing,
No, and the original Roadhouse isn't fucking high art. It's
no, but it's very entertaining.
Exactly. This, I think there are moments where it feels like it could have been something.
Yeah,
especially with Gyllenhaal. I think that's, as I said,
Gyllenhaal's a great actor.
Feels like he knows what he's doing.
He's a great actor. He is in great shape, and he looks capable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
he's got all the pieces,
Exactly. He's likable. I mean, if you're going to pick somebody to play a Patrick Swayze character, you need someone that has a certain boyish charm about them, and I think Gyllenhaal does have that.
Yeah.
He doesn't quite have the same charisma as Swayze, but who the fuck does?
Yeah, that's a tall order.
Exactly. But he at least has a
Sam Elliott.
Well, yeah, but Sam Elliott's not going to play the main character.
No, but there was someone who kind of matches his charisma. Yes. It's like, you've got both of them.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't recommend it. It's as an action movie, it's not the worst I've ever seen.
Sure.
But just even the love story, there's no fucking chemistry, and it's so badly put together that you don't believe it for a minute. You don't believe that he's remotely interested in this woman, and you don't really believe that she's remotely interested in him.
Yeah,
it's very odd. The setup, the poor woman Frankie, who's the head of who owns the roadhouse, she gets fuck all to do, really.
right.
There's just, you just think, well, they could have given her character a bit more. You know, that she's got nothing to. They just didn't know what to do with her. It feels like it's like you could have done something interesting with. They should have made, if anything, they should have made her the love interest.
Yeah. Do you know the weird thing is, like, the thing I can't quite understand with this is that this Roadhouse movie has been kicking around forever.
Yeah.
Because I remember at one point it was going to be Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
And I'm like, that was back when, like, what, Expendables 3, maybe around that time, when Ronda Rousey was considering she was terrible, so she never went into acting pretty much, but she was considering it, and she did a few roles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, that was ages ago. So I'm like, how have you still not got a good script by the time you get to this? Like, you've had forever.
I bet there are fucking tons of them out there.
Yeah, there must be. Like, but you'd think, you know, the more time you had, the tighter this script would become, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah,
it almost feels like some of it's been kept over. Like, oh yeah, she's an MMA fighter, you know, who killed someone, and it's almost like Ronda Rousey wasn't up to it. So and Conor McGregor probably can't act at all, really. Let's be honest.
Oh no, he's terrible.
So they were like, oh, just get Jake Gyllenhaal to do it. So it was almost like they've carried over some bits of that original script they had for Ronda Rousey, and then just like kind of shoved Jake Gyllenhaal awkwardly into it. But that's a theory. I don't know.
I mean, as much as we don't like gender swap stuff, it might have been.
I don't mind it if it's done well.
Rousey.
I don't mind it if it's done well. Ronda Rousey can legit kill people. I believe she could beat the shit out of someone.
Oh yeah.
The problem with Rousey is I've not really seen her do a very good acting performance. I think she's a tremendous fighter. I just, you know, some skills are not transferable. You just because you're a great fighter doesn't mean you're a good actor. And you know.
I think Gina Carano.
She's okay in movies.
She's not going to win any Oscars or anything, but I think she can emote and she can act. You know,
I'm sure there's more fighters that are good actors. I'm just not sure. Yeah. I don't really watch much fighting to know. I don't know a lot of them. You know,
I don't these days. I haven't for a while. I did get when Gina and Ronda were fighting. I used to watch it back then.
Yeah, I used to watch like the Ronda Rousey fights. You know, because they were like for a while there. It was like you're almost watching to see which girl's gonna beat her at that point. You know, you get to that point where you're like, she's like the one, and it's like who's gonna, you know. Yeah.
What's that? I can't remember what her name is now. Is that they call her the Machine? Is it
Cyborg? Something.
Sorry,
the
Cyborg.
I can't think of her name. They never fought, did they? In the end. Because wasn't that like the big thing that she kept saying she wanted to fight her, and it never happened? I think. But I don't really know MMA, so I'm probably talking out my ass, to be honest.
They did or not. It's completely gone.
But you know, I remember when Don Fry was in Godzilla Final Wars. I remember when MMA fighters were in stuff, but you know,
there's a long history of like wrestlers and boxers in movies.
Yeah, well, wrestlers you kind of get because wrestlers have that charisma to talk to a live audience, to be in front of people. It's basically theater, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot more.
That seems more transferable. Not always. Hulk Hogan was not a good actor. No. You know, Piper was.
I have seen way too many Hulk Hogan movies, though.
Roddy Piper turned out to be a great actor. Dave Bautista turned out to be a great actor. You know.
Let's be realistic. Let's not say great actor.
Well,
let's just say good actor.
No, Dave Bautista's a great actor.
Oh, Dave, yes.
Oh, sorry. Did I say Roddy Piper was a great actor? Yeah. Capable. Good enough.
He's good he's certainly good in They Live.
And Hell Comes to Frogtown.
I love Hell Comes to Frogtown. That movie is fucking mental.
It's a great movie.
But Bautista's really actually
he's brilliant.
Yeah. And I know he was saying that he wanted to tone his muscleage down so that he could get some proper parts.
I think he wants to get into directing as well and stuff. He's becoming like a real student of the whole craft.
Good. Fair play.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is as well, I was thinking this the other day. I saw The Rock. He's turned back up in wrestling, and I was like, you are way too old to be carrying the size you're carrying. Like the fucking whatever you're injecting yourself with, it's not going to end well. To be that big at his age.
Look at bloody Stallone.
Well, yeah, and Stallone's a bloody walking miracle. I can't believe he's still going. But having said that, you know, and so I think like with Batista, I'm like, dude, you don't need the muscle, right? He's always going to be a big athletic guy. That's just what he is. But he doesn't need that huge size because he can actually really act. And it's like, yeah, go for something slightly different. You know, lose some weight and do something different. Why not? With him, I don't think he's a risk because I think he's an actual actor now. I don't think he needs to rely on the muscles.
I still don't count him as an actor.
What, Batista?
Oh, sorry, no, I thought you meant...
no, not The Rock.
No, Batista, yes, I completely agree with that. The Rock, I don't...
No, The Rock needs that. That's The Rock's thing. I don't think he could, yeah. I mean, he's got charisma, but...
in spades.
Anyway.
I think he's a lovely human being.
He may well be.
From what I've seen of him, he's great. Everybody loves him, and he's fine. But I've never got the whole Rock movie thing.
I don't mind him in the right role, but he is pretty much just The Rock in everything.
I mean, I liked him in Jumanji, and that's about it, really.
Yeah. I liked him in Jumanji too. That was fun.
I still haven't seen Jumanji 2.
They go into the wrong bodies.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. Anyway.
Anyway,
you don't recommend Roadhouse.
Yeah. It's pretty awful.
Yeah.
I can't recommend it. It's a below average action movie. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I kind of assumed that was probably the case. So next and finally on my list of films with names that are too long, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, which I watched, I don't know, last weekend, I think. Yeah, last weekend. So this is like Ghostbusters, but better. it's really stupid, but it's very entertaining.
Right.
You know, as opposed to being boring. So directed by Adam Wingard, again. I think it's the same writing team for this as it was Godzilla vs. Kong. It's very much a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong in every way.
Yeah. It's
Godzilla vs. Kong, but more.
They're basically keeping with the mad technology.
The Showa era silly
Yeah.
is very much continuing. We're not like, you know, Godzilla 2014 and King of the Monsters are like almost a different franchise at this point. You know, which is the way the Showa era went. You know, you started with Godzilla, and by the time you're getting, well, I mean, they tried to bring it back in a little more serious towards the end when the ratings started falling. They went for, you know, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Terra Mechagodzilla, which are a bit more serious, but you know, the Showa era got very, very silly. It did the tag team action stuff, you know. You get like Jet Jaguar and, you know, all of that stuff, you know, versus Megalon and Gigan and all of that stuff. And that's effectively what you've got here, is the American version of that. And I've given this some thought because going into this movie, I was not really looking forward to watching this film, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
I genuinely was like, I just... Like,
it doesn't help that -1.
Well, this is -1 was almost the problem going into this, right?
Yeah.
Because when you love something, like I love Godzilla, and I was starved of Godzilla when 2014 came along, and then we got Shin Godzilla, which was great, but then it was like, are they going to do anything else? Because now they're just doing animated stuff. So it's like, well, okay, I can watch, you know, King of the Monsters, and then I've got Godzilla vs. Kong, and that was very silly, and it was really silly. Like Godzilla vs. Kong, like we said before, you've got a real like contrast between like what happens in King of the Monsters to Godzilla vs. Kong. It doesn't quite gel. Those two movies don't quite work in a very Showa way.
And Skull Island again,
very different.
It's pretty serious for most of that.
Well, Skull Island and King of the Monsters feel like they belong together. That works.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, those work.
But you know, it you then get like -1, and I was like, oh my god, I've got actual Godzilla back. You know, I've got like Japanese Godzilla. It's film of the year last year by a long stretch for me. It was superb. And then they had the trailer for this fucking movie at the start of that, and I was like, they need to get this clown shit as far away from this movie. I was like, I even said in the cinema to my friend, I was like, Ben, they should push this back by a year. Like, Godzilla X Kong should come out 2025 when people have completely forgotten about -1, or it's like at least far enough away. But they didn't. They released it now, and I was seeing the trailers, and I was like, this just looks really, really bad, and I really hate the new Godzilla design. I know they're going with the Godzilla 2000 thing, but I was like, it doesn't look good, right? And the Kong's got the robot arm and stuff. And then Mothra was in the trailer, and I was like, well, I love Mothra. Mothra's like my second favorite monster, so I'm like, all right, I'll go, it'll be good to see Mothra. So anyway, I went in and I wasn't expecting much. And maybe because I wasn't expecting much, I enjoyed this more than I was expecting to.
Sometimes that works out.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I certainly wouldn't say it's a good film. And I think target audience is important.
Yeah.
This is a film for kids, like, straight up. Like,
we're talking Saturday morning cartoon here.
Yes. Very much so. And they've kind of like cutesied up things, like Godzilla has a fight and then he's like sleeping in the Roman Colosseum like a cat, and things like that. It's all very and Kong's being Kong, and there's some funny moments there and stuff. But yeah, so it's a kids movie, and that's fine though. It's if a kids movie is entertaining and good, then it's entertaining and good, right? And that's pretty much what we've got here. The story is nonsense, as you'd expect. Godzilla has very little to do. In fact, the movie it's Kong's movie again, and I think Adam Wingard has been pretty clear that he favors Kong anyway.
And I think that does seem to be a thing with the audience as well. People are focused on Kong,
which is fine. I mean, he can emote a lot more. You're gonna react to Kong more. Now,
he's a lot more human than Zilla is.
Yeah, this movie is Kong's movie, even more so than Godzilla vs. Kong was. In fact, one of the things this movie does superb, right? Which I was really impressed with watching it. They've listened, right? You remember all the times that people have bitched and complained that they hate the human characters? Well, they're barely in this movie. There are massive stretches of this film with no dialogue, and it's just Kong or Godzilla, and they're barking, shouting, screaming at each other. And the movie does a fantastic job of getting across feeling, emotion, intent. They do it all without dialogue. They do a very good job of it, I think. You have, especially Kong, like you said, you can tell from his emoting what he's feeling and what's going on. But we're following him through the Hollow Earth as he finds he's got his new home in the Hollow Earth, and we see that Monarch have got like a base in the Hollow Earth now.
Is there any mention of the time?
No, none.
I didn't think there would be.
But I'm assuming they're going to explain that in the series, that Axis Mundi is in between the two, so it's kind of in a weird space.
I think we discussed it when we were talking about Monarch, and I think they're going to say that it's the corridor part.
They shouldn't stay in the corridor for very long, and they are. They're just stuck in the corridor while they're there. Yeah. I'm going to assume, but I don't know. They never mention it. Although they do have new vehicles, so maybe they'll at some point just be like, oh yeah, these new ones don't have that problem or something. I don't know. But in any case, so there's like a monitoring station in the Hollow Earth that's kind of following Kong, and we kind of open seeing Kong's day. He's like hunting these giant wolf monsters, or they're seemingly hunting him, but he's basically set traps. He's like gone human. He's like human intelligence now, so he's building primitive traps and stuff like Predator. Yeah, like think the end of Predator, and you're not far off what Kong's doing to like the various creatures in this film. But it's very clear that Kong is lonely, and he's searching every day. I think Rebecca Hall's character says, he searches every day for his family. He just needs his family. That's what he's there for, and he's getting more and more upset as he's not finding them. And there's like a moment where this like frog creature mimics his sound, and he actually thinks he's got one of his own kind, and he kind of runs up and finds this frog, and you can see the disappointment and upset on his face. Anyway, we get some kind of humorous moments. We see that the like Monarch have now got like doctors for Kong.
Right.
So like Dan Stevens is this what's his name? Trapper.
Yeah.
And he is basically like Kong's vet. So like at one point Kong comes to the surface and they're all really concerned because they're like, well, he shouldn't be up here because Godzilla will like smash his head in. And he's got a really bad tooth that's become infected. So Trapper is the guy who they like sedate Kong and take his tooth out and replace it with like a metal tooth and, you know, things like that.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny. But anyway, as you know, because the trailers have spoiled almost every part of this film, eventually Kong comes across a baby Kong. And Kong is actually ambushed by some apes, some other giant ape-like creatures, and this baby. And ultimately he defeats them and forces the baby, although they do start to bond on their travels through the Hollow Earth because they're heading towards where the Scar King is to meet Kong's people. They kind of bond, but he forces them to go there, and they meet the Scar King, who is basically like a slave master to the Kong kind. Right. Like he's even got a big whip, you know, and he's like, you know, forced labor. They're all kind of working away. Meanwhile, there's this mysterious call from the Hollow Earth, and Gia, the deaf girl, who was fantastic in Godzilla vs. Kong, she's attending school, Monarch School. But even Monarch School are like, there's something wrong with this kid. She's not quite right. And of course, she is herself saying, you know, I don't belong here. Like, my people are dead, and I just don't really belong in this modern civilization. It's not my life. It's not what I want. But she's having these visions and these dreams, and she can't quite make any sense of it, and you know, she doesn't quite understand. But she feels a pull towards the Hollow Earth, and when Kong ultimately they lose communications with the Monarch base inside the Hollow Earth. So they're going to go in, and of course Gia comes along. She convinces them that she needs to come along because of her calling and whatever. So all of this is going on, and then occasionally it cuts to Godzilla beating the fuck out of a monster on the surface. And then that's basically what you get for like, it's like,
and Godzilla still exists.
And Godzilla's beating people up on the surface. That's pretty much what happens, yeah. And well, it's clear they do say like, yeah, Godzilla's riled up and Kong's riled up about something, and they know it's all to do with this signal. Something's sending out this signal, and it's bothering both of them. Godzilla's on this kind of quest to power himself up and kind of evolve because of this impending threat that he's feeling. So not really spoilers.
Turn into Space Godzilla with all the crystals.
No, he doesn't turn into Space Godzilla. Hopefully he'll fight Space Godzilla at some point. That would be cool. I would like to see a Space Godzilla fight. That would be nice. I always liked Space Godzilla. So it's not a great movie, but it's an awesome design. But yeah, so this mysterious signal sends them all into the Hollow Earth. Obviously, Kong meets Scar King. Scar King is evil, and he has Shimu, the largest Titan, one of the first Titans who started the Ice Age, or basically made the Ice Age happen. And he's like, Shimu's under control of Scar King, who like controls her through pain and whatnot, and you can see where that's going. So anyway, Kong manages to escape, injured and whatever, gets his robot hand. They pull it right out of their fucking ass. They're like, oh yeah, we got robot hand for him. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We've been working on a robot hand. Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, okay. I was wondering when I saw the marketing, I was like, how are they going to explain this robot hand?
I actually just thought it was going to be a glove.
Well, it is. It is a glove. It's like a modification thing.
Right.
And I think they said, oh, well, we realized after Godzilla vs. Kong that Kong's a bit weak when it comes to other Titans. Yeah. And that if we're going to fucking have him living in the Hollow Earth, he's probably going to get beat up all day. So
he's got the advantage that he's, bipedal and
yeah, totally.
maneuverable, but he doesn't have atomic breath.
No, exactly. He doesn't have the superpowers. So this was their idea, but then they said the funding got cut, so they've got this prototype they've never used. Kong's got frostbite because he got attacked by Shimu and his arm's all knackered. And they're like, oh, well, we use this. And then they're also like, oh, yeah, and there's this injector on it, and that'll just cure his frostbite. Why not? Yeah, okay, sure, fine. So he's fine. Anyway, movie goes on from there, and it's the call is Mothra. Mothra's back again, spoiled by trailers, so that's not really a spoiler.
What is Shimu?
Just a made up monster for, well, all these monsters are made up. Disclaimer: kaijus are not real. But an American creation.
Oh, okay. So she's a new.
She's brand new thing. She's like an giant ice monster.
Okay.
She's
just makes me sound like Shimu sounds like what was the name of that? Wasn't there a dolphin, a killer, a whale or something that was Shamu? Shamu was in like the 80s or something, the 90s. There was a killer whale that was called Shamu, I think.
What, in a movie?
No, it was a real one.
A real
sure
killer whale.
Killer. Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm getting things mixed up, but I'm sure there was a real whale called Shamu.
Was this the? Are you thinking of the murdering one that they had in SeaWorld?
Maybe. Yeah.
Killed a bunch of people, or at least one person. I know that whale's name. It's really bugging me that I don't know that now.
Shamu.
No. Oh goodness, it'll come to me eventually. But anyway, it might have been. I don't think it is. I think it's something else. Might be something similar. But anyway, yes, I know what you mean though. Yeah. I think there's a number of things this movie does well. There's a number of things this movie doesn't do well. The thing it does very well is that spending time with Kong and seeing his emotions and seeing his relationships with the other monsters and his day-to-day life. I think one of the film's biggest problems, for me at least, is you're watching a giant monster movie, so you want to see giant monsters, right? How do you see giant monsters? You see giant monsters from their scale to other things, but since the movie entirely takes place in a hollow earth for the most part, everything's giant anyway. So it's like you might as well be like, half the time you're watching the movie, you're like, well, it might as well just be like a Planet of the Apes movie now, because like they're all
just
giant.
A bunch of apes running around.
They're all giant, and the plants are all giant, and like everything's all giant. So you're like, it just looks, like that scale is almost completely lost. There are moments, obviously Godzilla's on the surface, so you do get some bits on the surface, but very little. Most of it's in the Hollow Earth. That being said, I really love the Hollow Earth. I kind of like, as an idea, now that they've done this goofy thing, I'm kind of like, it's beautiful to look at and it's an interesting idea. But you do lose that scale as a result. You're like, well, I can't, like I said, it might as well be a Planet of the Apes movie. You can't really tell the scale until there's humans there, which again is quite rare in this movie. But Mothra has very little to do. Godzilla has very little to do. Kong has lots to do. But that's fine.
Okay.
And like I said, it's show it era silly. Don't expect anything to make much sense. It's just is.
It's going to be slightly disappointing for me though, because I prefer Godzilla to Kong.
Oh, me too.
So
yeah, me too. But I enjoyed the movie, and Godzilla has stuff to do. It's not like Godzilla has nothing to do.
Okay.
I mean, Godzilla is on this mission to power himself up and evolve in response to this threat and this signal. And yeah, so you do get bits, and you do get Godzilla versus Kong too briefly, and he just doesn't have much of a plot. Let's put it that way. And it's kind of weird when Godzilla's just powered himself up and evolved into this ultimate form, and then he fights Kong, and Kong kind of kicks his ass for a while, and you're like, aren't you meant to be way more powerful now? Because you don't seem to be that much more powerful. It's like Kong just slugged you in the face. I mean, he's got robot hands now. Maybe that's what makes the difference. But yeah, it's fine. I think, if you're going to see this movie, do not obviously, I think maybe a lot of people until -1 have never seen a proper Godzilla movie. And now they've seen it, they're now seeing this and they're like, oh my god, this is terrible. And it's like, well, yeah, it is, but it's a very different Godzilla movie, and I think people don't realize there are very different shades of Godzilla, you know. Like 1954 is a very different movie to, you know, Destroy All Monsters. They're like night and day different.
We discussed this a lot. You know, you said that there are because I think a lot of people are very focused on the original and -1 as oh, they should all be like this. It's like no,
and I disagree
really.
with that. And Godzilla 1954 is my favorite film of all time, ever. And I do not think that should be the case. I've always liked the diversity of Godzilla. There's for a giant monster series, there's a surprising amount of diversity in those films. Like, you could watch the most dour, serious, and upsetting film ever, or you could watch the silliest shit you've ever seen in your life and just laugh your head off.
You could watch Godzilla flying with his breath.
Yeah, why not?
or power kicking someone.
Yeah, dropkick. Yeah, doing a dropkick. Now, I think the flying. It's funny because everyone always posts the image, the gif of Jet Jaguar holding Megalon as Godzilla does the run up dropkick. But I've always thought him flying against the smog monster is way more silly.
Jet propelled Godzilla is way weirder.
More silly, which is weird because that's one of the more serious movies until that part.
Yes.
But yeah, it's there's always been different Godzilla movies, and I was reflecting on this the other day, and I thought, do you know what? I don't really trust Western filmmakers to make a properly serious Godzilla movie. Now, I think King of the Monsters in 2014 is probably as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
But I think they're better off just making.
They've moved far away from that now.
They have, and even those at their best, they're not a patch on, obviously, 1954 or even -1 or even Shin Godzilla. And Shin Godzilla is a dark comedy, but it's got some real sort of serious overtones.
I don't want the thing is this is the thing that Hollywood does is when they've done something and then they've seen something similar that's worked.
Oh God, I hope they don't.
They try to restructure, and
can't.
I think after having seen how -1 went, I kind of hope they don't try and pivot.
They need to stick. They need to stick to doing this silly shit.
Yeah,
like, this is fine. So. This is what they do. Popcorn movies, and it's great. It's a great spectacle. It's silly. It's fun. I laughed out loud a couple of times. I laughed out loud at this way more than I did Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, which was not funny at all. This I laughed out loud a couple of times. There's a oh god, I don't even know. I should actually. This is not really. It's a minor spoiler. There is a scene in this film when Kong's ambushed by the apes, the gorillas. The first time he meets the baby Kong, and he's trying to be friendly with baby Kong, and then baby Kong bites his hand, and they all start attacking. There's a bit in the movie where Kong picks up the baby and uses him as a club to start clubbing the other gorillas. And I fucking pissed myself laughing. It was one of the funniest things I've seen this year. I was like, that was amazing. So there are some really funny moments in this movie. And I just think, like, you know, that's what they need to stick to. Stick to the silly and stick to the popcorn, because you don't need it. Because Japan are happily doing the serious Godzilla now. We can have the best of both at the same time. It's great. I mean, you know.
And having said that, though, King of the Monsters is still my favourite of the American ones.
Yeah, mine too. But even then, that's not like, you know, there's some very silly things in that movie, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I think they should just stick with that. You know, it's fine. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I would have preferred they continued with King of the Monsters I felt like King of the Monsters was the perfect blend of serious and silly, and it was good. This I actually think I was thinking this. I actually feel like I prefer this movie to Godzilla vs. Kong.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's going to stay the case when I watch it again in the future. I think the only reason I actually think this might be better now is because I'm over the shock of Godzilla vs. Kong. because like the
Yeah.
tonal shift and the technological shift between King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong is like fucking whiplash inducing, and it's really weird. But now that they've done that, it's like, okay, now we just live in this world, and I can just enjoy this world for what it is, because it's just, it is that now, And I'm wondering if that kind of softens the blow with this one, where you're like, okay, I'm already used to it being silly tech.
Well,
And
it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate the next season of Monarch, because
well, it's going to be King of the Monsters, right?
the first, but the first one series was pretty serious, really.
Well, I'm assuming the next season will be as well, because it's going to be King of the Monsters.
Yeah,
because when they come back, the date is going to be around the time of Ghidorah.
For Ghidorah, yeah.
Because obviously Kong's still on Skull Island as well, so I'm assuming they'll be doing like keeping it relatively. I think that's the way they might go. Is that the TV show will hang around that era? The King of the Monsters
more
stuff.
Serious, maybe.
Keep with the old Godzilla design, and then the movies will just go further and further ahead.
Yeah.
Which I think could be a good way to do it, because then we can have the best of both with the American stuff as well. But yeah, it's a fine movie for what it is. It's a Showa era silly Godzilla movie, and there's definitely a place for that. Nice to see Mothra back. The cast are fine. Even what's his name is less annoying this time around.
The cast guy.
Yeah, I mean he's got less to do, but he's less annoying in this one.
He was terrible.
Yeah, he's less annoying. Because I was really worried. I was like, of all the characters, why did you bring him back? He was like my least favourite from that movie. But
well, I'm guessing Millie Bobby Brown's probably been busy with all her stuff.
Yeah, it's weird because they don't even mention what's his name, Mr. Russell, the dad.
Yes.
Who was like a massive part of King of the Monsters and
Monarch.
barely in Godzilla vs. Kong. But again, it's one of those weird things where it's like, but isn't he like really important in Monarch, and you never even mention him? It's bizarre. But yeah, it's fine. The cast are fine. If you want to see toys smashing into each other, you can go. You could do worse.
Exactly. Yeah, I do want
it's
that.
Fun. It's really fun, and there's some really trippy things in it, and I kind of like that. They really lean into the Hollow Earth trippiness. There's like a fight in almost zero gravity, which is like really fun.
Cool.
There's some really fun bits in it.
I'm glad it's good, because I've been looking forward to it. I do want to see it.
It's very silly, but very fun. If you go in expecting Showa era silly, Godzilla vs. Kong kind of silly. It's almost like taking Godzilla vs. Kong to its natural conclusion, really. It's like, yeah, well, there you go. Now we've established that the world is silly. This is it. Here we go. And yeah, it's fine. And the Godzilla redesign, it kind of grew on me by the end. It's still not as good as I think King of the Monsters is the best design they had for American Godzilla.
Yeah.
But it's the fucking toys.
Yep.
So what it always is, whenever they do this shit, it's like with Marvel, it was like the first iteration of every Marvel suit in the movies was the best iteration. And then after that, every movie subsequent, they've made it worse and worse and worse to try and change it. And you can tell, they're like, well, Godzilla can upgrade himself, and then we can sell new toys. And I guess with Kong, they were like, oh, we'll just give him a robot hand.
There is a part of me that kind of loves that, though, because it does warm my heart that kids are playing with toys.
Oh no, totally. I get it. I get it. It's just that I think the main problem with Godzilla's design here is that it's suffering from, and I know what they were doing. They're doing the Godzilla 2000 look, kind of. But it feels like that over engineering thing, where it's like you had a really nice design and now you're just going too far because you feel like you have to sell toys, like you have to change it somehow, but you already had a really good design, so you're kind of making it worse as time goes on. But in motion and seeing it in the movie, it's not so bad. It's fine. So yeah, Shimu is very unimposing for such a big threat.
Right.
Never really got the impression that she could have caused the Ice Age from anything she does in the movie.
Okay.
But again, she could be holding back because she's doing it under duress or whatever, and whatever. But and Scar King is great, by the way. Scar King's really good as a villain. It's
See-
nice that Kong's kind of got his King Ghidorah, you know,
Yeah.
because he's never really had that. When I thought about it, I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, he fought Robot Kong, but
Yeah.
that was about it. So it's kind of fun that Kong now has faced an arch villain, you know. But yeah, so yeah, fun, silly fun.
I've just looked up Shamu, by the way.
Yeah.
Shamu was a female orca captured in 1965.
Oh, it was Shamu. Shamu, that's not who I was thinking of.
Yeah, she died in 71, so way earlier than I was thinking. But
Yeah, it's not the whale I was thinking of. I was
San
thinking
Diego
of
SeaWorld.
I was thinking of the killer whale that killed a couple of people.
This one did bite one of the trainers before it died.
No, this there was some guy
I
who
think I
snuck
know the one
into
that
the
you mean,
tank and it killed someone.
They did a documentary on it, didn't they?
Yeah, I just can't think.
Blackfish or something like that.
What was his name? Tecum. Tilikum. Yeah.
Right.
Something like that. Talikum. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, what else have you watched?
So I am going to go with Dogman.
Dogman.
So this is the latest movie from Luc Besson, starring Caleb Landry Jones, Jojo T. Gibbs, Gibbs. Sorry. And this is about a young man called Douglas Monroe, who, when at the very beginning of the movie, we were first introduced to him. He's pulled over by the cops driving a truck, and he is in full Marilyn Monroe drag.
Right.
And the police open the back of his lorry, and it is just completely full of dogs.
Right.
So the movie then sort of unfolds as he's in a sort of a prison cell talking to a psychiatrist, Evelyn, played by Jojo Gibbs, who is sort of basically getting his life story out of him. And you get this story of when he was a child, his dad was this horrible guy who made his money off of dogfights. And when he expressed love for the dogs, his dad got angry and said, "Do you love the dogs more than your family?" And he said yes. Was put in the cage with the dogs, and the dogs basically rally around him and sort of kind of bring him up, as it were.
Right. Okay.
And he then goes, the story goes, he went into care and all that sort of stuff, and he goes off and
So it's one of those kind of almost feral kid movies, like, Tarzan /
Not exactly, because
what was the one? There is a movie about a couple of kids that are raised by wolves.
There's a few.
Can't think. But okay, this is an interesting premise.
So, as an adult, he becomes this sort of he has all these dogs, and they live in an abandoned school. It's like this wreck of a school, and he does good things for people, and people do things for him.
Yeah.
He is, due to an incident with his father, there's a bullet lodged in his spine, so he can't walk.
Right.
He's got full sort of calipers. But he's in a chair, and he can sort of walk with the calipers a few short distances, and he can stand, but he's not very good on his legs. But he does have a chair, and you learn that he basically becomes a drag artist who sings once a week at this club, and it's a very weird story. But I loved it very, very much. It's really harrowing at times, and really does defy reality. There was a lot of things that the dogs basically know what he communicates properly. There's a scene where he's making a cake, and he says to the dog, "Oh, get me some sugar." The dog goes and gets some sugar. Get me this flour. Dog goes and gets the flour. So there's a there is a very sort of, you have to click off a little bit of reality on just how much the dogs can do. But if you go with it,
Yeah.
it's really, really cool. And his character is, I think, fascinating because his life has been a complete misery, but he loves these dogs, and he doesn't trust humans, but he isn't bitter about them. He doesn't try and do anything to sort of against people. He just sees it as he weirdly accepts it as like, well, this is just what God made me, and
Right. This is my life, and
yeah. And there's a line he says, complaints are prayers to the devil.
Right.
So he has this very odd sort of, existence as this guy who just lives with dogs because dogs love unconditionally, and that's how he's sort of been brought up with in his, and it has a very odd sort of. I'm not quite sure whether it's supposed to be in a time period or not, because it feels at times very late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
And the soundtrack sort of, you've got some Madonna in here, and you've got some sort of other stuff that kind of fits with that. And the clothes he wears and some other people wear look very 70s. So there's a sort of weird element to it that makes it, but then there are mobile phones and modern cars.
Yeah.
So it's one of those sort of ones where he hasn't. It doesn't seem that he's specifically put it in the 70s, but he hasn't really made it modern either.
Yeah.
It has this sort of almost
timeless kind of feel,
a weirdness about it that I really like. What they did with that. It's really, really quite interesting. And if anything, it at times feels like very early Rodriguez.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool.
It feels like a little bit like El Mariachi. It's got that sort of almost sort of surreal feel to it that's the early Rodriguez had. Rodriguez was very good at building a world. That where you are in that world. It's a horrible sort of Mexican exploitation movie world, and it at times this feels like that. And it does feel he is a very Luc Besson character.
I was going to say it does sound very Luc Besson.
He likes his damaged characters, doesn't he?
He does.
He likes his characters that are sort of slightly apart from society.
Yes.
But are, part of it in a very odd way. Like Leon or Nikita.
Yeah.
They have that sort of, they're outsiders, but.
Do you know, I almost picked up Angela on DVD the other day because I saw it in a shop and I was like, I haven't watched that film since I saw it in the cinema, and I've got really fond memories of that movie. Actually, I thought it was pretty good. So.
Yeah, Besson's great. I love him.
He is. He is. I mean, I think we both said that we both enjoyed Valerian, which a lot of people fucking hate.
Yeah, I did.
I actually liked quite a bit of that movie.
It was a little
miscast,
bit messy,
and
it was bad. Issue. Yeah, they cast the wrong people. I think was the main problem with Valerian.
I think it is. Yeah.
As much as I like, is it Dane DeHaan? Is it? As much as I like him, he was not right for that character.
No, definitely not.
And Colin Valerian was fine, but yeah, I think it was I think if he would have chose better stars, that movie I think would have worked a lot.
I agree.
Better.
Yeah.
Caleb Landry Jones is one of those actors who I think I like him a lot. He is a very good actor. There's one thing that always brings me up, however, is, and I've said it before, I always go back to his part in Byzantium, where I just wanted Saoirse Ronan's character to just eat him. Because I hate his character in that movie. But it is a slight thing where I always remember his character in that one whenever someone mentions him. And I think, oh, that's a shame because he doesn't really deserve that because he's actually a good actor.
Yeah.
He is fucking amazing in this. He has this sort of way of phrasing things. At times he sounds like Brad Pitt.
Right.
He's got a very sort of Brad Pitt sort of speech thing going on, and he's so good with there are these really sort of quiet moments where he's just putting makeup on, or he's singing these songs that his mother loved, and you see these sort of, you know, the stuff that he does, because I don't want to spoil it, but to survive, he also does robberies, or his dogs do. His basically dogs break into rich people's houses and they steal jewelry. So that's another part where you have to suspend your, you know, on how much you can train a dog to do.
Yes, of course.
Because these dogs, like, you know, they're almost like an extension of his will. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There is the last sort of act, as it were, is a big sort of confrontation between him and a gang, sort of this Mexican gang that he's kind of they early in the movie you see that this gang's extorting people in this neighborhood, and there's a lady that he does his laundry. I think she owns a laundrette, I think, and she does his laundry.
Right.
And she can't afford to do it, so he kind of warns them off, and obviously that's a bad idea. Hence, you get what happens at the end, which is not really, you know, it's not it's a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you what fucking happens.
Yeah. But
I think it's a weird movie that some people will have trouble getting to grips with.
Sure.
Because it is far from a, you know, a standard movie. It is very odd. I found it weirdly beautiful. I think his character. I think some people might have problems with the sexuality part, which I don't think it wasn't. I don't think it was a part for me. But I've seen some reviewers that have said, "Oh, well, it's problematic." And it's like, I don't think it is. I think it's certainly not being detrimental or being derogatory about drag queens or anything like that. It's part of his identity of trying to find who he is. There's a character that when he was in a home, she was a drama teacher, and she taught him all Shakespeare, so he knows all Shakespeare plays off heart.
Right.
So he's very dramatic, and he loves the idea of Shakespeare, and he kind of sees his life as very Shakespearean, which it is.
Yeah.
It's very Shakespearean, you know, in that sort of whole big tragedy type thing, you know, and he uses disguises because it means he can be someone else for a bit, and he can, you know, there's something else for him to do and something else for him to interact with, and somewhere else that he can see. And I think that's just part of who he is. It's a really nice part of who he is.
Yeah.
He does this. There are whole performances where he does Lily Marlena as a sort of Marlena Dietrich drag, and he does Edith Piaf, which sort of, and it's really fucking. I thought it was really fucking cool. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I think I highly recommend it for someone who, because it's not really an action movie, even though there's action in it. It's more of a sort of a character study of misery, I guess, and how someone can cope with that misery through the love of dogs.
Yeah.
And you know, have a life for themselves, no matter what it is they have to do and what they go through, and that they don't. He never blames other people for his situation. He doesn't. You know, for him it's just, oh well, that's just what it is. You know, and I liked this sort of relationship that gets built between him and the Evelyn, the psychiatrist, who there's a bit of clumsy dialogue with her character when she's talking to her mother, and she's got a kid herself, and obviously she gets all the. It sounds like she gets all the crappy late night jobs, which is why she gets called to talk to him.
Right.
And there's a thing where her and her mother are having a conversation about the child's father and how he's bad news and all that, but it's done in a very bad sort of exposition dump way that doesn't feel very natural. So I will say that some of the dialogue is a little bit on the nose and a bit rough, but I think it was only for those parts. I think the rest of it is really, really good and really lovely, and I like the way it was filmed as well. It does have a sort of a sort of weird other period piece about it. It felt very now but 70s.
Yeah, I kind of like that sometimes.
Sounds crazy, but
a few movies have done that.
Yeah.
I always remember The Mist is kind of like that, where you've got some weird mismatch of tech and non-tech, and like old vehicles, new vehicles. It's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, I quite like that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
and Luc Besson's got a visual style that I really like as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this for me, this slots right in with Leon and Nikita. It is those sort of those outcast characters that are just getting by.
Yeah, there's a definite similar theme there.
Yeah, and Caleb Landry Jones is wonderful. He just has these lovely little moments where he's just talking and explaining himself, and they're just so good. I really, really like them. And I think I brought up the other week, he is going to be Dracula for Besson.
Yes, I think you did say that the other week.
Yeah. So he's. I think their next movie is I think it's called Dracula: Love Story.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be Dracula, and I hopefully I'm intrigued by that.
Oh yeah, there's definite potential there.
Yeah, it's I can't remember who's playing. Christoph Waltz is in it as well. Yeah, it says he's playing a priest. So
right.
I thought maybe he was playing Van Helsing, but he says priest here. But yeah, so I look forward to that. And this movie I thought was wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it. It's like I said, it's really harrowing at times. I think some people may not find it that way, but I found it very moving and very heartfelt. It was a really enjoyable, different movie. It was really good. I really loved it.
Cool. Is there anything else? I think there is actually. Yes.
Yes. I'll guess I'll keep it brief because it's been out for a while. But I also watched The Gentleman TV series.
Yeah.
On Netflix. Guy Ritchie. It's his baby. We've got Theo James. I'm going to butcher this one. Scordeliero. Daniel Ings, Jolie Richardson, Vinnie Jones, Juan Carlo Esposito, Ray Winston. So it's got this great cast list.
Yeah.
And basically, it's Theo James's character of Eddie Horniman, who at the beginning of the series he's a soldier. He's a captain in the army, and he's basically called back to England because his dad has just died. His dad, Lord of the Manor, and he's the youngest son. And upon reading the will, it turns out that his dad left him the title and the grounds, to which his idiot brother, the older, is absolutely livid about.
Right.
You do learn very fucking quickly why his dad did not leave everything.
Sure, yeah.
To his coke snorting brother, who is a complete fuck up. So you also he then finds out that Susie Glass basically runs a dope growing farm on his property. His dad had this deal with the Glass family where they grow and they just get a part of it, and it's all underground, it's all hidden away. and he wants nothing to do with this. He wants his house, the grounds and the house to stay in the family, and he wants that. But you'll read that other than that, if they didn't have that, they wouldn't have any money. They've got a couple of paintings that are worth shitloads,
Right.
but that's the sort of
the money's in the land. Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically comes to this sort of arrangement where if he helps them get a certain amount of money, like in a year, I think it is, he wants them gone.
Sure.
And then you get the brother owes some Scouse gangsters a shitload of money, which just gets worse. And you've got what's his name? Peter Serafinowicz. Peter Serafinowicz is one of these guys, and he's a Scouse gangster, and they come to this deal where if they give him a certain amount of money that he owes, I think it's like half of what he owes, but he has to make an apology while doing a dance in a chicken suit.
Right.
And there is this long scene of him going through this dance and this apology, and Peter Serafinowicz was just going, no, I didn't feel that at all. You're going to have to do it again, but with much feeling, and it goes on and gets worse and worse. And you can only imagine what happens, and I won't spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. But it's pretty fun. It's funny and horrific. So
right,
it is that thing that Ritchie does so well, which is, yes, it's massively horrific and borderline psychotic, but it's also very, very funny.
Yeah, he does skirt that line quite well.
The characters all feel very human. They're all, even the fuck up brother, who I hate. He seems to be everybody's favorite character. I don't know why he's people's favorite character. He is a complete and utter fuck up, but he is such a good character.
Yeah,
he's the guy who plays him so well. You just want to punch this guy, but you kind of still want to see what he does next. It's that good. But it's completely carried by Theo James and K.S. Cordillero. Susie Glass is my favourite character. She's the daughter of Ray Winston's character. Yeah, Ray Winston he's like a East End gangster who's currently in prison. So she's running his, all of his stuff while he's in prison. So he does the stuff he kind of oversees it in prison, but she does all the legwork and she organizes everything. And they have this amazing relationship throughout that builds throughout the show that there are times where you sort of see it gets a bit, moonlighting, and you think, oh, it's going to be one of those romance things, and it's going to be a bit, but he does it in a way that isn't quite what you're expecting, and there are moments that you don't quite see coming, and you're like, oh fuck, she's done that. Okay, fine. It's really fucking good. It's one of the best series I've seen for a while. It's so funny and so just great. And you got Vinnie Jones he's the groundskeeper of the family who, like, he's got this house full of animals that he's just rescued. So he's got there's a fox and an injured hedgehog and an owl. Right. And there's this moment where Theo James kind of goes, he sees the fox running around his house, and he goes, aren't we paying you to get rid of those things? It's brilliant. I massively recommend it to anyone. Certainly if you like Guy Ritchie, and that sort of thing, it's one of the funniest shows I've seen in a while. It's just great. Everybody in it's doing their full tilt. It's wonderful. I love it.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I meant to catch it and I just didn't get time in the end. But yeah, good stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Just a few quick ones. They've just released some pictures of Christian Bale as Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, okay.
It's an interesting picture. It's very scars and big old stitches. It's very.
It's very Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at it now. That looks cool, though. I mean, Christian Bale, I no doubt will give a good performance. You know, he's just one of those actors.
It's set in the 30s, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah, just looking through. Yeah, set in the 30s, and it's going to be directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Right.
It's called The Bride because it's got an exclamation mark on it. And it's basically the monster goes to some doctor and because he's lonely and wants them to make him a new, I guess, a companion. So
is the idea that he's continued since?
I think so. It's the idea that
and he wants a new bride now,
wandering the earth. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So Jessie Buckley's playing the bride, and I love Jessie Buckley. I think she's fun. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
So kind of looking for that. There was a line from the thing that made me think about gave alarm bells about the where is it? Combustible romance, the attention of the police, and a wide and radical social movement, which makes me think, oh, okay, is it going to be one of those sort of they're trying to say something about society movies? Okay, that might be okay if they handle it right.
Yeah.
Good news, everyone. They're making a Matrix 5.
Fucking who cares?
I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, Lana Wachowski's producing it again. And you just think, well, you made such a fuss about the last one. It seemed to me that the last one they made in such a way that it was just awful.
I hated it. I thought it was terrible.
Yeah,
I actually thought it was I thought they were purposely sinking the franchise. That's
exactly it. That's what I thought.
So I'm very surprised they're making another. I thought that was it Lana. I thought she purposely just went out of her way to make the shittest film she could to just absolutely sink that franchise. So I'm surprised they're doing another one.
It's going to be directed by Drew Goddard.
Right. I mean, I've got to say, I have zero negative interest in seeing another one of those movies.
I honestly
absolutely
do not
none.
Know why they would? There's no news on Reeves or Carrie-Anne Moss being in it yet, so there's not even that.
I just don't think I'd watch it either way. I have just no interest after that last one. I mean, I'm bearing in mind I'm not a fan of the Matrix sequels anyway.
No.
But that last one, absolute nail in the coffin for me. I don't think I'd ever bother with another one.
No, and I don't think I can actually bring myself to watch it, to be honest. So I think it's on like Amazon right now, but there's no way I'm going to bother.
No, it's terrible.
So that's basically it. There's a great trailer for a film called Cuckoo that I thought.
Yeah, no, I saw the trailer for that. It looks
great.
Really
good. I recommend it.
I watched it. Yeah,
looked interesting. It's got Dan Stevens in, who seems to be, making a little niche for himself with horror movies and
for sure since like The Guest and stuff. Yeah,
because he's also going to be in that. Oh no, I forgot what that's called. It's a vampire movie that I think we discussed a couple of weeks back.
Yeah,
Abigail, is it? I think
something like that.
And he's in that as well, so he does seem to be doing all right with the horror, which is so funny when you consider that originally most people would originally have known him from Downton Abbey, which is so different from what he's been in. Because I really liked him in Legion.
Yeah, but that was a naff movie, but fun.
No, the series.
Okay, is that the same thing?
The Marvel series.
Oh, I'd not seen it.
It was sort of separate from the.
I thought you meant that naff angel movie with the angel that goes to the bar and has a gunfight.
I love that movie.
Yeah, me too. It's rubbish, but it's fun, right? Yeah.
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 They did a series of that as well.
That's what
actually.
I thought. I thought they did a series of that. That's why I was like, oh, the series is based on that movie.
Yeah, no, this is one of the it's a mutant.
Yeah, I think it's the one that killed Xavier. Is it Xavier's brother or something?
Yes.
Some weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that from the comics. Vaguely.
Yeah. Yeah, that series was the first couple of seasons really good, but it sort of tails off towards the end,
as many series do.
Yeah, but he was very good in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that trailer for Cuckoo. I thought it was really cool.
I was just thinking a social thing in the 30s could be the Great Depression. Could be like a movement based off of that. Yeah. I was just working that phrase through my head, and I was like, well, what social things happened in the 30s? So I guess you got the Great Depression and the aftermath of all that. Could be interesting. Christian Bale would be great, so yeah. I'm really curious about that.
I quite like that design. I thought it's nice.
No, it looks good. It very much Mary Shelley's Frankenstein vibes. Well, and also actually Hammer's Frankenstein, the Christopher Lee version is very much like that. Which is much more human looking and stitched together. So yeah, it looks kind of cool. Did we talk about Alien Romulus?
I think we did, yes.
Yeah, okay. I was just checking. I can't remember. I haven't got much to say about it anyway.
I think we both agreed that we liked the trailer.
Like the trailer. Zero faith in it being any good, but I like the trailer.
No,
I'll give it a go. I will give it a go. My expectations are beneath zero after Prometheus and Covenant.
I think Mauler said, do you remember how good the trailer for Prometheus was?
They all are. The Alien series, I was saying this to Ben the other day, the Alien series has always had great trailers, and most of the films are terrible, but they've always had great trailers. Yeah. Always.
Yeah. So I think it takes place between Alien and Aliens, I think.
Yes, I've seen some spoilers that are very much intertwined with Alien. And Covenant, apparently.
And I think they've also mentioned that it's connected to Prometheus as well, isn't it?
It is. If the rumors are true, though, it's going to be a very good thing.
Well,
but I don't want to kind of give spoilers and stuff.
I think it's hinted that they sort something out of that, and it's like, okay, well, maybe if they have,
there is. Yeah, I think from what I've read, if they do what I've read, then I think it will be it could be a very good thing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But we'll see if they do, and we'll see if those rumors are actually true before. I don't want to give away potential spoilers, big spoilers for a movie that's not even remotely out yet. So we'll wait and see. But yes, well, we've already decided what we're doing next time.
We did.
So we will be back next week with the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
And a favourite of mine, actually. I'm really looking forward to rewatching that. I was thinking about rewatching it recently, which is why I kind of mentioned it. So
yeah, it's been a while since I've seen the original, so I'm gonna enjoy that.
Yeah. But yes, so in any case, thank you for listening, and we will be back next time.